Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Stone Age family.
From the town of Bedrock, they're a page right out of history.
Everybody knows the Flintstones. TV's modern Stone Age family is one of the most rebooted cartoons of all time. There's the classic animated sitcom, a time leap forward with Pebbles and Bam Bam as teenagers, a flashback series with Fred and Wilma as children, there's Fred and Barney as police officers partnered with the Shmoo, crossover adventures with the Jetsons, holiday specials, a theatrically released feature that spoofed James Bond,
A spy type guy.
I'm home!
there's also the live-action movie, the live-action prequel, plus serials, vitamins, ice capades, and a gimmicky wrestling picture co-starring John Cena.
I'm John Cena Stone.
I assume this was pitched as a project for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? Had to be. For over 60 years, the Flintstones have appeared in all kinds of media, including some media that feels like it's from a prehistoric time.
How does it work? And don't point that thing at me!
The characters have become icons of pop culture with plenty of parodies and reimaginings.
I got an erection.
My favorite spoof is this cover of the Sex Pistols' Anarchy in the UK. But right now we're going to look at a weird chapter in Fred Flintstone's history. No, not the cigarette ads.
Flintstone's got that filter place. Yeah, Fred.
We're talking about the Flintstones Backdoor Pilot, a doomed Hanna-Barbera project that got reinvented multiple times in a bizarre journey that involves Pee Wee Herman, Jodie Foster, Howard Morris,
Yeah, that's me. Able-bodied man.
Charles Nelson Riley, John Aston, Zelda Rubinstein, and Count Dracula.
Hiya, Mayborn.
It's all part of Behind the Backdoor Pilot, the Flintstones. The 1960s were a good time for monster kids. There was not one, but two primetime sitcoms about monsters.
We're the average American family.
Horror hosts were reviving the creature feature. Plus, you had famous monsters of Filmland magazine and novelty records like The Monster Mash.
He did the Monster Mash.
It was a golden age of spooky media. But before all that monster business was taking the country by storm, Hanna-Barbera had been trying to launch their own creature cartoon, which eventually involved the Flintstones. Our story begins in the 1950s. Meet Michael Maltz, an animation writer who is credited as co-creating some iconic characters, including Yosemite Sam,
The roughest, toughest He-Man, stuffest hombre has ever crossed the Rio Grande.
Pepe Le Pew,
Ah, my darling, how beautiful you are.
and Michigan J. Frog.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Maltz even wrote that catchy song. Footnote, Michael Maltz was also a voice actor. He played one of the castaways in Waikiki Wabbit.
We're gonna have roast rabbit. We're gonna have roast rabbit.
In 1958, Maltz left Warner Brothers to go work for Hanna-Barbera. There, he created scripts for Quick Draw McGraw, The Yogi Bear Show, and The Flintstones. Maltz also wrote a series of cartoons about a detective duo that you might not remember, Snooper and Blabber.
Snooper Detective Agency. We solve your case without rhyme or reason, and also make keys during the adult slack season.
Classic Hanna-Barbera. I'll let you decide if that's a compliment or not. In the 1959 short Big Diaper Caper, Michael Maltz introduced a creepy family.
Come in, darlings.
The detectives were hired to babysit their evil toddler.
Gosh, Snoop, the little fella's almost cute.
The creepy couple is part Boris and Natasha, part Gomez and Morticia, with a little Vampira and Peter Lorre.
It's very romantic.
That's very unfair.
Next, the family showed up in a Snagglepuss cartoon.
Say, why aren't you in school? Better yet,
Why aren't you in jail?
Then 3 more Snooper and Blabber cartoons.
Oh dear, the door chime.
Obviously, these characters were ready to branch out into their own series. And so, for the next few years, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera tried to sell an animated TV series about this family of evil weirdos. One of the pilot scripts was titled The Twosomes and the Gruesomes, pairing an average American family with a weird one. For better or worse, it did not sell.
We might get lucky and find some money to help pay for all this.
Never one to give up on an idea, Hanna-Barbera turned the concept into a short run of comic books. But soon the characters returned to television with a special assignment: to add some flavor to a sitcom that was getting long in Sabretooth. By 1964, the Flintstones had been on the air for 5 seasons. From day one, you've got a high concept, a caveman sitcom. And the producers kept adding gimmicks to keep the series from getting flat. By the end of the 3rd season, they added a baby. Then another baby with superhuman strength.
Bam, bam, bam.
Followed by an exotic new pet.
Come on, Hoppy.
Later came a family of prehistoric hillbillies.
Hiya, folks.
Guest appearances by real-life celebrities in cartoon form. That's Stoney Curtis and Anne Margrock. Get it? Even a crossover with live-action sitcom characters in cartoon form.
You know what you said, no hocus pocus.
That's because the same animation company that made the Flintstones made the opening titles for Bewitched. By the 5th season, there was a time travel episode.
Where are we this time?
Followed by the addition of a super intelligent alien who only Fred and Barney can see.
I am the Great Gazoo.
The Flintstones was about to collapse under the weight of all these concepts. So why not introduce some new neighbors who just happen to be old Hanna-Barbera villains looking to launch their own series? That's what happens on this season 5 episode titled The Gruesomes. The year is 1964. The 9th episode of season 5 opens in a real estate office with a bizarre family buying a house in Bedrock.
Oh, it's delightfully morbid.
Oh, the folks next door to this place are the Flintstones. They're very friendly people. We'll take it.
That's right, it's the classic comedy premise of Unwanted Neighbors. As you can see, these neighbors are Mr. and Mrs. J. Evil Scientist reimagined as a modern Stone Age family.
Hello, Mr. Flintstone. I'm gruesome.
You can call me Weirdly.
Weirdly Gruesome is played by Howard Morris, a comic actor whose animation credits include voicing Gopher, Jughead, Beetle Bailey, and Hamburglar.
Rubbo, rubbo.
Next, there's his wife, Creepella,
You may call me Creepy Cookie.
their son, Goblin, and their pet, Schneider the Spider. But Fred will soon discover that Schneider is just one of their many strange pets.
Out with the grasshopper.
Fred and Barney go inside the house next door after they get roped into babysitting. It turns out this babysitting plotline follows the same beats of that unproduced pilot from 3 years earlier.
We can see several elements that carry all the way through to the Flintstones episodes, including the man-eating plant and the normal neighbor babysitting the Gruesomes kid.
Yes, the babysitting plotline is a go-to for Hanna-Barbera, but let's focus on this backdoor pilot.
Come on, Fred, let's check on little Gobby.
The babysitters encounter all kinds of deadly situations.
Oh, no!
They've had enough after Fred is nearly decapitated.
Oh, boy, what a place this is.
Finally, the parents come home, allowing Fred and Barney to escape with their lives.
We're moving. Get your clothes back.
Now here comes the twist.
And here are the stars of At Home with the Gruesomes.
The Gruesomes?
We find out that the new neighbors host their own TV variety show.
There's a lot of talent right here in Bedrock.
Fred and Barney no longer hate their neighbors because they want to get invited onto the show.
We certainly have some oddball neighbors, Creepella.
This tacked-on epilogue is a cute little ending for an episode that features some near-death experiences. But it also feels like an inside joke. In the world of the Flintstones, Mr. and Mrs. J. Evil Scientist finally had the TV series that Hanna-Barbera had been trying to sell for years. This backdoor pilot was the closest thing the Gruesomes ever had for their own show, but the bizarre family was just getting warmed up. The year is 1965.
Nice catch, Mr. Flintstone.
The gruesomes return near the end of the Flintstones' 5th season. An episode sees Fred trying to get rid of some unwanted visitors, a family of hillbillies known as the Hat Rocks.
Well, then there ain't no rush at all. We can stay till hog branding time.
Fred is desperate to get the country folk to go back home to Frankenstones. And that's when he hatches a classic sitcom plan.
How would you like to do your neighbor a big favor, huh?
Fred assumes the Hat Rocks will freak out when they meet the weird neighbors, and like clockwork, his plan backfires.
Looks like your idea ain't working out too good, huh, Fred?
Turns out these one-note supporting characters get along.
I like to play it with spirit.
And so this episode about two colorful families marked the final appearance of both the Hat Rocks and the gruesomes. Well, it was their final appearance on the original series. 8 years later, the Flintstones were back on TV. Unlike the original Flintstone series, the Pebbles and Bam Bam show was not a primetime sitcom, but a cartoon that ran on Saturday mornings. The premise was that the babies are now teenagers. It was like Hanna-Barbera's version of All Grown Up.
Would you guys like your own lane?
But not everyone was growing older. Gobby Gruesome is still a toddler and still in need of babysitting.
I just turned down a chance to babysit for the gruesomes tonight.
Let's pause to look at a few odd details. When Gobby first appeared on the Flintstones, he could speak.
Quiet, Schneider, or I'll have to scrunch you.
Now he's regressed to making the exact same noises as the evil toddler. Another odd detail is that even though Pebbles has been living next door to the gruesomes for over a decade, she doesn't know the child's name.
Is Schneider your son?
Oh, no. Schneider is her pet spider.
Pet spider? Wow, that's way out.
And you might have noticed Mrs. Gruesome looks a little pale.
Of course, dear.
The new version of Creepella looks a little like Angelica Houston, who would later play Morticia Addams. We've entered a hall of mirrors. The point is, without explanation, she's lost her green complexion. Keep in mind, there were other green-skinned characters on the Flintstones, like the Great Gazoo, and an evil scientist named Dr. Sinister. But back to the Pebbles and Bam Bam show.
Keep a sharp eye on little Gobby.
Pebbles offers to babysit Gobby as part of a complicated storyline involving a missing birthday present.
Quick, let's split up and search for Mom's birthday present.
They search the house, which leads to the usual gruesome babysitting hijinks.
Yikes! Let's look in here.
The search requires Pebbles and the gang to crash a gruesome family reunion, and to appear as part of the family, they show up in hideous disguises, looking kinda like characters from A Clockwork Orange. Which is odd because this episode aired within a month of the movie's premiere.
Very well, little brother. Very well.
Anyway, this 1972 cartoon was the last official appearance by the gruesomes.
This is a family reunion.
They never did get a series, but the story does not end there. Far from it. Their postscript has more endings than Peter Jackson's Return of the King. We'll start in 1968.
And away they go on the way out Wacky Races.
This animated sports comedy featured a cavalcade of cars in a cross-country road race.
Competing for the title of the world's wackiest racer.
The Saturday morning series had obvious villains and heroes, but most of the drivers are character types, including cavemen, gangsters, and monsters. Meet the Gruesome Twosome, not to be confused with the 1968 Herschel Gordon Lewis Gorefest of the same name. The Twosome's car, known as the Creepy Coupe, is very much in the spirit of the Gruesome family. complete with a custom storm cloud, just like the one that hung over Tombstone Manor.
Must be one of those local showers.
The drivers were known as Little Gruesome, a purple-skinned vampire,
I'd like to talk to you slangs about a dented fender.
and Big Gruesome, a mop-topped giant.
Yes, indeed.
Inside the car, there's a fire-breathing dragon.
Using dragon jet power.
So technically, the gruesome twosome are a gruesome threesome. Sounds like something in a Ralph Bakshi cartoon. It should come as no surprise that Michael Maltz wrote for Wacky Races, so he's probably responsible for this rehash of the gruesomes on wheels.
And the creepy kook gives him a big hand.
Believe it or not, Hanna-Barbera created 2 spin-off cartoons starring some of the characters from Wacky Races, although that didn't include the twosome. But the gruesomes would come back for another sports comedy.
It's Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics, starring Scooby-Doo and the gang.
Scooby-Doo?
1977's Laugh Olympics is basically a cartoon version of Battle of the Network Stars, a gimmicky competition series where teams of TV actors go head-to-head in athletic events. It's also an excuse to show stars in swimwear.
Yeah.
Here, 3 teams of Hanna-Barbera characters compete in a variety of games.
45 stars in the Laugh Olympics.
Saturday morning viewers could root for the Yogi Yahooies, the Scooby Doobies, or the Really Rottens. That team includes the Creeply family.
We'd better not abandon delicate little Daisy.
There's Mr. Creeply, Mrs. Creeply, Junior Creeply, and their pet octopus. They're the gruesomes with a new name, but they're no longer dressed in prehistoric wardrobe. They're just a family of 1970s weirdos. Not to be confused with that other family of 70s weirdos.
We're the Brady kids, and this is our treehouse.
Several characters we've mentioned earlier in this video appear in Laugh Olympics. Snagglepuss.
I'll do that. That I'll do.
The Flintstones.
It's all in the balance.
Even Snooper and Blabber.
And virtually everybody who's an anybody is here.
I'm not saying Laugh Olympics had too many characters, but it had more characters than a Gary Marshall movie.
It's Valentine's Day today?
The Creeplys were bit players in a big ensemble cast. As members of the Really Rottens, the Creeply family would sabotage the other 2 teams and cheat in the athletic competitions, making them practically indistinguishable from their teammates.
We Rottens of a feather stick together.
Also, the octopus got all the best gags.
Look and listen to him go.
Being relegated to bit players in an all-star ensemble of forgettable cartoons may have been a far cry from the Gruesomes getting their own sitcom. But don't worry, Hanna-Barbera did get to make a version of that show. We go back to 1972. In an episode of the Scooby-Doo movies, the young detectives come face-to-face with these weirdos.
Now I know why this house looks so familiar. It belongs to the Addams family.
You're right.
Hanna-Barbera finally got to work with the family that inspired the Gruesomes. And you might not believe it, but the episode plotline involves babysitting.
Pugsley and Wednesday are no trouble at all.
Yeah, but...
This episode is relevant to what we've seen in previous cartoons. It's a greatest hits, featuring a creepy house, man-eating plants, trapdoors. They really love the trapdoors. Weird family pets,
Some pet.
the sandbox, and more. This episode has it all, plus an overbearing laugh track.
Did you say detective or defective?
Don't let him bug you, Scoob. I like you with a mustache.
This epic crossover eventually led to Hanna-Barbera making a series for the Addams family. If you listen closely, you'll hear that the Backdoor Pilot features the stars of the original sitcom.
How triste.
Triste. Tish, you spoke French. Speak some more.
Now, the 1973 Saturday morning series featured some of the original actors, including Jackie Coogan and Ted Cassidy, joined by new cast members like future Academy Award winner Jodie Foster as Pugsley.
Good old father. Thanks to him, this entire park belongs to us.
So kudos to Hanna-Barbera for graduating from an Addams Family copycat to an officially sanctioned version of the creepy, kooky family. Is it just me, or does that car look familiar? There's one more version of the evil scientist family that made it to the airwaves. Once again, it's thanks to the Flintstones. The year is 1979. The modern Stone Age family was back with the new Fred and Barney show.
Hey, Fred, it's the same old gang, you know.
Yeah, Bon, in a top new kind of show.
Pebbles and Bam Bam were back to being toddlers, but this series was reimagined for a contemporary audience in the late 70s. There were new guest characters, too.
The guests are getting weirder every day.
Like in this episode titled, Fred and Barney Meet the Frankenstones.
I'm Frank Frankenstone. This is my wife, Hydia.
Now, you hardcore Hanna-Barbera fans will remember the name Frankenstone because that was the name of a mad scientist from Season 5. Not to be confused with Dr. Sinister, also from Season 5. Dr. Frankenstone performs weird experiments on Fred, Wilma, Betty, and Barney.
I'm getting tired of this routine. I'm with you.
But there's no evidence that he has any relationship with the new Frankenstone monster. This is the first appearance of Frank Frankenstone, and I know what you're thinking. A Flintstones character wearing shoes? Weird, right? But that's not what bothers Fred and Barney. They're more taken aback by how macabre the whole family is. The episode begins with the fellas seeing some new condominiums in Bedrock.
You can say that again.
The episode begins with the fellas seeing some new condominiums in Bedrock.
It's a new development called Gravestone.
And sure enough, it's another spooky residence. As soon as they arrive, Barney ends up touching a corpse.
Here's your skull. Yow!
Just like the title promises, Fred and Barney meet the Frankenstones. There's Frank, Hydia, Freaky, and Atrocia. Very much the Wednesday Addams of the bunch. Plus, a sea monster in the pool, bodies being built in the bodybuilding room. There's even a Batasaurus.
There's a pesky Batasaurus bugging me, Fred.
Where?
Right here.
Ew!
Next thing we know, it's a party at the condo.
The whole place is crawling with creeps.
There's all kinds of monsters, weird creatures, and whatever this thing is. Then you'll never guess who shows up.
Well, if it isn't the Ghoulstones.
Ghoulstones? Clearly, they're the gruesomes with yet another new name. And it's like a symbolic passing of the baton. The gruesomes walked so that the Frankenstones could run. And this backdoor pilot was just one of many attempts to make Frankenstone happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Frankenstone
happen. It's not going to happen.
But Hanna-Barbera was determined to make this family into Saturday morning stars. October 1979, NBC airs a primetime special, The Flintstones Meet Rockula and Frankenstone, despite the fact that they just met Rockula and Frankenstone 1 month earlier. Now, I'm not saying Hanna-Barbera was bankrupt of new ideas, but there had already been a 1966 comic book where the Flintstones met Frankenstein and Dracula. But that was over a decade ago. Time for the story to be retold. The special begins with the Flintstones and Rubbles appearing on a TV game show where they win a big prize.
A free trip for two to romantic Rocksylvania in the castle of the legendary Count Rockula.
Just like in National Lampoon's European Vacation, where the Griswolds dress up for a game show and win a destination vacation.
And the Griswolds are our grand prize winners!
And oh my God, the game show host is played by Gomez Addams. Anyway, this marks the second appearance of Frankenstone. This time he barely speaks. He doesn't have a family, but he does have shoes. The previous version sounded like Boris Karloff.
He was just beginning to look so good.
Here he sounds like Lurch from the Addams Family.
Yes, master.
That's because he's voiced by Ted Cassidy, who played Lurch on the Addams Family.
You rang.
There is no continuity with the other Frankenstone appearances. But this primetime special is quite special because we see what a smoke show Wilma is when she lets her hair down. It's no wonder Rockula wanted to marry her.
I must make you my new bride.
Oh.
For better or worse, this would not be the end of Frankenstone. The same way Universal Studios kept making Frankenstein sequels, Hanna-Barbera kept reviving Frankenstone. In some ways, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera were like mad scientists, taking their creation and bringing it back from the dead over and over again, looking for new ways to give it life everlasting. Which brings us to 1980. Frankenstone returned in another primetime special, The Flintstones New Neighbors.
And when the Flintstones meet the Frankenstones.
It's a reboot in multiple ways. For one thing, the characters never acknowledged that they'd already met.
We're the Flintstones, your next-door neighbors.
Oh?
And the Flintstones never mentioned that this is the second time a weird family moved next door.
No, tell me it isn't true.
The primetime special delivers a serious message about intolerance.
They're nice folks. They are not folks, they're freaks.
Fred paints hate speech by his neighbor's house, calling them freaks.
So you're gonna have to decide who you're gonna be friends with.
But keep in mind, the last time monsters moved next door, they tried to decapitate Fred. So maybe he just isn't over it. Also, we should mention, there's an episode of the new Fred and Barney show where another monster comes to the neighborhood.
Hiya, neighbors.
Yes, Count Rockula moves in.
I just rented the house next door. Isn't that a happy coincidence?
What is going on in Bedrock? This one street has attracted vampires, monsters, weirdos, and even a witch. Was Fred's house built on top of a cemetery like in Poltergeist?
You moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You only moved the headstones! Why?
The Flintstones New Neighbors is basically a do-over of the gruesomes. But instead of Addams Family type characters, the neighbors are more like the Munsters. And this time, it was a home run.
Oh dear.
Fred finally comes around to the Frankenstones.
All I can say is, yabba dabba doo.
And the family next door got to move on up in a new series. The next incarnation of the Frankenstones was a mishmash of bedrock stories called the Flintstone Comedy Show. Not to be confused with an earlier series called the Flintstone Comedy Hour, later repackaged as 1973's The Flintstone Comedy Show. So yes, there are two different series, both called The Flintstone Comedy Show. Thankfully, we never got the Flintstone Tragedy Show. Over the past 60 years, there have been 14 different Flintstone TV series. Titles include The Flintstones, The Flintstone Funnies, Flintstone Frolics, Fred Flintstone and Friends, Flintstone Kids, Cave Kids, Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo, and let's not forget 1979's Fred and Barney Meet the Thing. Spoiler, they don't team up with the Thing, they're just sharing a time slot and doing some bits in between episodes. But let's get back to the Frankenstones on 1980's The Flintstone Comedy Show.
Nothing like a good comedy, Frank, huh?
The familiar concept was still intact, but there were a lot of changes for the Frankenstones. You've probably seen a TV series reinvent a character, right? Like the pilot of Buffy had a different Willow. Or how the backdoor pilot for Empty Nest originally starred Rita Moreno and Paul Dooley, before it was reimagined with Richard Mulligan. You can watch our video about it right here on the Atomic Abe channel. Likewise, there was some significant retooling with the Frankenstones, starting with Frank. Previously, they had tried a few different personality types, from a moaning monster
No, master.
to a gentle giant.
Yabba doo?
This time, they went in a whole new direction.
Oh, don't worry, Mrs. Greenstone. Oh, I'll fix it up in a bat's blink.
With the voice of Charles Nelson Riley, a steadily employed character actor and game show panelist.
Your reign is over, Philip. The women are turning toward me.
If his name sounds familiar, that's because Charles Nelson Riley is the subject of songs by the Dead Milkmen and Weird Al.
Charles Nelson Riley figured out cold fusion, but he never ever told a soul.
Charles Nelson Riley transforms this creature into a classic sitcom dad.
Oh, I'm gonna get you for this, Flintstone!
Like Herman Munster, the patriarch is played as a man-child prone to tantrums.
You've made me mad.
And they're both a little bit gay.
Yum! I love chocolate mousse.
He's got a job as a TV repairman.
Where's
that broken TV, Flintstone?
and is constantly feuding with Fred.
Don't get so mad. Don't get mad.
Plus, there's new actors playing the kids. First up is Atrocia, voiced by Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist.
Carol Ann must help them cross over.
She gets into trouble by casting magical spells.
Oh, I think I did a bad thing.
Now see if you can recognize the voice of Freaky Frankenstone.
Wow! Hey, listen to this! Bedrock Beauty Contest applications open today.
It's Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman.
I know you are, but what am I?
This new version of Freaky is decidedly less freaky.
Hi, Dad. I'm just doing some homework now.
That's your boy? He seems so normal.
Just like Cousin Marilyn on the Munsters. Plus, Freaky becomes something of a love interest for Pebbles. Oh, by the way, Pebbles is a teenager again.
Hi, Mr. Frankenstone!
And once again, she sneaks into her neighbor's party by dressing up like a distant relative. If you think that fake nose is phallic, wait till you see this prehistoric microphone. Anyway, this time the ghoulish neighbors stuck around for 2 seasons, and they finally got to star in their own adventures.
I love it. Yeah.
The Flintstones comedy show was an epic 90-minute Saturday morning cartoon combining reruns of previous Flintstone episodes with new segments starring the Frankenstones, Dino and the Cave Mouse, the Shmoo, and Captain Caveman. Peppered with some fun play-along games.
For 100 pterodactyl eggs, here's your first look at our mixed-up celebrity face.
The Frankenstones never got to appear in a live-action Flintstone movie. But you know who did? That Mick Jagger parody.
I have a more ridiculously thin dead body.
So in a journey spanning 4 decades, Mr. and Mrs. J. Evil Scientist finally became reimagined semi-regulars on the 4th Flintstones reboot.
Oh, that makes me happy. Weirdos. Oh.
Let that be a reminder to never give up on your dreams, no matter how weird they are.
You think we're just like we do.
Ta-ta.
Thanks for joining us on Behind the Backdoor Pilot, or should I say, Behind the Trapdoor Pilot. You can subscribe to the Atomic Abe channel, hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a new video, and be sure to catch up on other installments of Behind the Backdoor Pilot, like our retrospective of every single spin-off of the Brady Bunch.
This is really embarrassing.